Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
Today we're going to be tackling a topic that I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
And sometimes gets kind of simplified, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the dynamics between Filipinas and expats in relationships.
Absolutely.
And we're diving into this blog post titled, The Truth About Compatibility in Relationships. Filipinas and Expats Unite.
Yeah, and I think you know this bird and a fish analogy.
Right.
Gets thrown around a lot.
It does. It does. Like, can these two worlds really meet?
Yeah, can they coexist? Right.
Yeah, right.
And this blog post really challenges that.
So what's the argument against that whole bird and a fish idea?
Well, the author, who is actually in a mixed marriage themselves,
Okay.
really emphasizes that, lasting compatibility isn't about being identical.
Right.
It's more about shared values and having a vision for the future.
I mean, that makes sense. It's like, do you want someone who has all the same hobbies as you, but you have completely different life goals?
Right, or vice versa.
Or vice versa, exactly.
Exactly.
So it's about the bigger picture, not just like these superficial similarities.
Exactly. And, the blog post even uses this funny example
Okay.
of, imagine a Filipina learning to play bingo at a senior center or being taken to a gun range.
Right, out of their element.
Right, totally. And it might seem out of place, but it highlights this idea that relationships are about, growing and adapting together.
Right, like you're not trying to erase those differences.
Right.
But you're open to kind of experiencing those new things.
Yeah.
Through your partner's eyes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I was struck by the story the blog told about this Australian expat.
Oh, yeah?
Who falls head over heels for a Filipina bartender.
Yeah.
And he was like totally convinced she was at it was a league. But they end up building this like beautiful relationship.
Right.
And what I thought was so interesting about that is it's like, it's almost like flipping the script on that opposites attract cliche.
Yeah.
It's not just about being different.
It's about the differences leading to something deeper.
Yes, exactly. It's about appreciating those unique perspectives.
Exactly.
And how those can actually like fuel a desire to learn and grow together.
And I think especially in these pairings, the Filipina's cultural background, it often introduces a dynamic that might be really different from what the expat partner is used to, especially in, Western relationships.
And I think for those listening who might not, be familiar with Filipino culture, what are some of those key differences that might stand out in a relationship?
Well, one of the things the blog highlights is, the value placed on respectfulness and traits that are often associated with femininity. Now, I know that term can be loaded and can have, different interpretations, but in this context, it's about, expressing warmth. Nurturing, and a certain grace in interactions.
So it's not about, fitting into a stereotype.
Right.
But it's about understanding that cultural context.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I think, that can create a really interesting dynamic in a relationship.
Yeah, almost like, a balancing effect.
Exactly. It's not about one culture being better than the other, right? It's about recognizing the strengths each partner brings.
Yeah.
And how those differences can create, kind of a beautiful synergy.
And the blog post also talks about this idea of shared spirituality, especially given that, Catholicism and Christianity are so central to the lives of many Filipinas.
Absolutely.
So how does that play a role?
Well, faith can definitely be a strong foundation for many couples.
Right.
But it's also worth noting that Filipinas are often, incredibly adaptable and tolerant when it comes to different belief systems.
So it's more about like finding that common ground in terms of values and respect. Okay. So it's not about demanding like uniformity, but about having that shared foundation.
Right. Yeah.
Respect.
I like that.
And speaking of shared foundations, the blog emphasizes this need for couples to be aligned on future goals.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's family, careers, or lifestyle.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
Well, that shared vision for the future is really crucial.
Yeah. And, this is where I think things can get tricky.
Yeah.
Because we've got these differences in cultural values.
Right.
We often hear about the importance of extended family.
Yes.
In Filipino culture.
Absolutely.
So how does that play into, building a life together?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That role of extended family, it is often much more central in Filipino culture than in, a lot of Western societies.
Yeah.
And it's something that expat partners really need to understand and be prepared to navigate.
Yeah.
It can bring immense richness and support to the relationship, but it also can present unique challenges.
Does the blog give any specific examples of how couples have navigated that?
It does. There's a really touching anecdote about There's a really touching anecdote about an American expat who, initially felt really overwhelmed by the constant presence of his Filipino wife's extended family.
Yeah, I can imagine that could be a bit of a culture shock.
Right, totally. But over time, he came to appreciate the warmth and the support and the sense of community that they brought to their lives. He even started learning some Tagalog phrases to communicate better with them.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so sweet.
It's really heartwarming, right?
It is. It shows you how embracing those differences can actually bring you closer.
Absolutely. And, speaking of communication, this is another area where Filipinas often bring a unique perspective to the table.
Okay, how so?
Well, the blog highlights their tendency towards directness and honesty.
Interesting.
Which can be really refreshing, especially compared to the, sometimes more nuanced communication styles you see in Western cultures.
So less beating around the bush and more just saying what's on your mind.
Pretty much, straight to the point.
I like that.
And while that might take some getting used to for an expat partner,
Yeah.
that straightforwardness can actually lay a really strong foundation for understanding and conflict resolution.
Yeah, because you're not left guessing what the other person is really thinking or feeling.
Exactly. It's all out in the open.
And I think that can be especially helpful when you're navigating the complexities of an intercultural relationship.
Oh, for sure. It can help prevent misunderstandings that might arise from those different cultural norms.
Right, like how you express your emotions or address sensitive topics.
Right, exactly. It's about being clear and open in your communication.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that as these relationships become more common, there's this growing sense of community too.
Oh, absolutely. There are all these online forums and chat rooms now where people can share their experiences and support each other.
That's so cool. It's like having a built-in network of people who really get it.
Exactly. And that can be so valuable, especially for Filipinas who are navigating the unique challenges of an intercultural relationship.
For sure. That sense of belonging can make a world of difference.
And, within these relationships, it's also important to celebrate both individual and shared accomplishments.
Okay.
Why is that? Well, the blog highlights how this ties into the Filipina cultural emphasis on modesty and appreciation for recognition.
So it's not just about reaching those milestones, but about acknowledging and appreciating each other's efforts.
Exactly. It's about celebrating the journey together.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the cultural and emotional aspects of these relationships, but I'm curious about the financial side of things, because that can often be a point of contention or even suspicion in intercultural relationships.
Right. It's a valid concern.
So how does the blog address that?
Well, it acknowledges that, financial security can be a consideration, but it emphasizes that love and respect should be the primary driving forces in the relationship.
So it's about finding that balance where both partners feel secure and respected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Regardless of their financial contributions.
That makes sense. Like you said earlier, shared values and a vision for the future are what really matters.
Precisely. Financial stability might be a factor, but it shouldn't be the defining one.
This whole conversation has really challenged that initial bird and fish analogy.
I agree.
It seems like those differences, rather than being deal breakers, can actually become strengths when you approach them with understanding and respect.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our perspective and seeing those differences as opportunities for growth and connection.
Imagine a world where we celebrate those differences instead of fearing them.
Right. The possibilities are endless.
That's such a powerful message. It's about expanding our definition of what a successful relationship can look like.
And recognizing that love can flourish in the most unexpected places.
And speaking of stepping outside our comfort zones, I have a feeling some of our listeners might be feeling inspired to explore the possibility of a relationship with someone from a different culture.
I hope so. And if that's the case, I have a suggestion.
I'm all ears.
Why not head over to wealthylovewell.com?
Yes, wealthylovewell.com is an amazing platform for meeting people from all walks of life.
You can create a free dating profile and start exploring. You never know. You might just find that special someone who perfectly embodies that blend of bird and fish.
Or something even more extraordinary.
Exactly.
What's so exciting about this is even if you don't find the one right away, it's still a chance to expand your social circle and learn more about different cultures.
Absolutely. You might make some amazing new friends along the way.
And who knows? You might discover that those cultural differences you once perceived as barriers are actually the very things that draw you to someone.
It's all about keeping an open mind and an open heart. It's amazing, isn't it, how our own perceptions can sometimes, blind us to the possibilities.
Yeah, totally. Like, we get stuck in these boxes of, this is what I know, this is what I've been told.
Exactly. And we miss out on that richness of experiencing something truly different.
And especially when it comes to relationships, right?
Oh, absolutely. It can really hold us back from finding something truly special.
This makes me wonder.
Yeah.
If we're talking about cultural differences as, assets, what other incompatibilities, quote unquote, might actually have hidden strengths?
Right. What if the things we see as obstacles are actually keys to unlocking something even deeper?
Deeper connection, more fulfillment. I don't know.
Exactly. It's a real challenge to all of us.
It is.
To be more open-minded, more curious.
More willing to embrace the unexpected.
Yes. And to see those differences not as threats, but as opportunities.
Opportunities to grow, to learn, to discover.
Yes.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Filipina expat relationships, let's leave our listeners with that thought. Don't let those preconceived notions hold you back, right?
Absolutely.
Embrace the differences. Explore the possibilities.
You might be surprised at the connections you make.
And if you are feeling adventurous and ready to kind of dive into those possibilities,
head over to wealthylovewell.com.
Yes. Create a free profile. See who's out there.
You never know what you might find.
Happy diving, everyone.